Hello everyone! Today's video will be a product review. A few days ago, Games Workshop published a teaser with the number 145. Of course, it wasn't a teaser of the number itself, but of the release of 145 new paints. Let's take a closer look at these products. I first noticed that Games Workshop changed the pots. These pots have new caps. These caps have opening protection that breaks when first opened. The pots are very well sealed, so customers may be sure that they buy new, fresh, unused and never opened paint. Most paints come with semi-transparent caps, so the color is visible through the lid. This is very useful when you have many paints on the table. It's very hard to understand why Games Workshop decided to change their palette so dramatically. I have been told that Games Workshop changed their paint supplier. In the past, Games Workshop changed the supplier about 10 years ago. The colors changed, but they kept the names of the paints. Blood Red changed in tint a little and also in coverage rate, but kept the same name. About 6 years ago, Games Workshop extended their palette by adding new military colors like desert yellow, Catachan green and so on. Then they offered more foundation paints and finally replaced inks with washes. It's really hard to understand what they decided to rename all the colors instead of expanding the palette. Names like Blood Red are classic in the Warhammer world, and they are used in many painting tutorials, in Citadel books like how to paint Citadel miniatures, how to paint Space Marines and so on. Suggested paint colors are shown on many models' boxes. Now this information is useless. Games Workshop released a conversion chart. It can be found on GW website. I decided to check 3 colors from a new range. Bolt Gunmetal is now Lead Belcher, Makrite Red is now Mephiston Red, Mordian Blue is Macragge Blue. In the description, we can find that new colors will be similar, but not exactly the same. Games Workshop did what they promised. The colors are more or less similar. In my opinion, conversion chart is useless. Games Workshop replaced their 3 ranges, Citadel Color, Citadel Wash and Citadel Foundation, with 7 new ranges. They are Base, colors which can be used as a first layer over the primer. There are 34 of these paints. Layer, thin down paints for layering. There are 70 of these paints. Shade, they are washes with new names. There are 12 of these paints. Dry, thick paints for dry brushing. There are 15 of these paints. Glaze, a very thin paint similar to washes but used for highlighting rather than shading. There are 4 of these glazes. Texture, structural paints for making a texture on the bases. 6 types total. Technical, varnish, decal medium, base coats and liquid green stuff. Base colors are paints with very good covering rates. Many of them have better colors than old paints. Of course, if you want, you can stick to the conversion chart. However, in my opinion, Macragge blue is closer to the ultramarine blue than Aldorf blue, and Mephiston red is closer to the blood red than Macrite red. Paints from the base range are very similar to the products we know as Citadel paints. It's sad that a palette of 65 Citadel colors and foundation paints was replaced with 34 colors. It's a significant reduction of base colors. I also see a problem with metallics. They have much bigger pigments than the old ones. A surface painted with new lead belcher paint is not so smooth as one painted with bolt gunmetal. These paints are designed for layer painting. They are very thin, they contain a lot of water and they have very poor covering ability. In my opinion, they are the worst paints that Games Workshop have ever produced. The reason for launching this product was: many people have problems with diluting the Citadel paints for layering, so we will supply them in a thinned down paints ready for use just out of the bottle. But layering works in many different ways. If I want to make a smooth gradient between red and blue, I have to mix these paints together in various proportions and apply many coats. There is not ready-to-use set of layer paints for this purpose. Similarly, there is no set for transition between red and yellow, blue and white, and so on. This range doesn't offer real solutions. For example, for painting the skin, I had to buy two paints, Tan and Elf Flesh. Now I have to buy one base and two free layers. In my opinion, the whole layer range is one big mistake. Shades are washes with new names. Here we see Chaos Warrior shield painted with lead belcher. I'm covering it in Nuln oil. It gives the same effect as Badab Black. Glazes return to the Citadel palette after 12 years. These paints are used for smooth tinting of surfaces. Here is an example of tinting green the Chaos Warrior's shield. This is very thick paint. My first impression was it's a curdled paint. This product was designed for making textured surfaces on bases. Applying these paints takes much more time than applying glue and sand. In addition, the sand grain in the texture paint is really big. I tried to make a base using this stuff, but when it dried, I discovered that in many places there is paint with no grain. Using this stuff for making multiple bases will be expensive because the pot is really small. For example, sandy paste from Vallejo comes in a pot over 6 ounce and it's over 20 times larger, with a price only around about 4 times of the cost of the small pot of texture paint. My first impression of these paints was very similar to the texture paint range. They looked like curdled paint. I tried them out and I'm not impressed by idea of applying a thick paste on a model. Cleaning a brush before painting is much easier when the paint is fluid. If you want to use this paste, you have to ensure that every clump of paint is removed from a brush, because it's really easy to add more paste than you intended to the model. Games Workshop decided to make a major change in their paint range. This, of course, is a reasonable business decision for them in short term. Each retailer will have to buy a rack with all the new paints for over $1,000. It will be nice income when you will multiply the number of retailers by $1,000. Games Workshop is a company and their mission is generating a profit. They have the right to do that. But how will this change affect the sale of paints in the long term? They replace 65 paints with good covering rates for only 34. Many useful colors are now not available anymore. For example, Necron players paint power cables in weapons starting from Scorpion Green, then highlighting it to the white. Now there is no color called Scorpion Green in the base palette. Now they have to use few layers of mood green to get a color darker than Scorpion Green, and then highlight it with their own mixes of mood green and white. Scorpion Green is not only the color that disappeared. There is also a lack of purples, gray, sand, turquoise, flesh and ochre colors. Now, instead of using one paint, players have to use two or more to get similar color. I'm not sure that really helps the hobbyists, and I'm afraid that they will be looking for the easier solution. Thank you for watching, please like the video, comment and subscribe to my channel. If you enjoyed this vid, please share it with your friends, I really appreciate it. Thank you, cheers!